there are thousands of different types of fat in the body, and what has been difficult in the past is it hasn't been possible to measure all of those fats in one go in a single experiment. So the technological advance that we had here was we were able to measure in one go over 1,000 different types of fat. So we did that in the brain cells of people with motor neuron disease and frontotemporal dementia. And what we discovered was a very specific reduction in the levels of polyunsaturated fatty acids. So that was the first experiment. So then we wanted to go on and try and understand what that meant, because it wasn't clear whether that was a protective effect or whether that was harmful. So the next thing we did then was use a very specific model we use in the lab, which is a fruit fly. So we love using fruit flies in the lab. So they've been used by scientists since the early 1900s, and it turns out that 75% of genes that cause disease in humans are also present in fruit flies, and they've been used actually for a number of very important discoveries, and several Nobel Prizes have been won based on using fruit flies, and the findings in fruit flies generally translate to humans. So we have a fruit fly model of motor neuron disease where we give the fruit fly a gene that we know causes motor neuron disease. And in those fruit flies, they become paralyzed and then die much more quickly than the control flies. So the first experiment we did is that we took this fly model of motor neuron disease and we fed them these polyunsaturated fatty acids. And when we did that, we saw an extension of survival. So that was a good result. So it suggested that this deficiency in polyunsaturated fatty acids is bad and increasing them is good. But actually, we were slightly disappointed with the result because the extension of lifespan of survival was not as large as we were hoping. And we wondered whether the reason for that was that when you take in these polyunsaturated fatty acids through the diet, only a limited amount gets to the brain. So then we came up with a really cool experiment to try and get more of these polyunsaturated fatty acids into the brain. So we did that by taking an enzyme that makes these polyunsaturated fatty acids and turning it on only in the brain cells of the flies. So by doing that, we could specifically increase the polyunsaturated fatty acids in the brains of the flies that have motor neuron disease. And when we did that, we saw a really very dramatic extension of lifespan. And I think that's really important because what that's telling us is that these polyunsaturated fatty acids probably are beneficial, but the best benefit is when you can get them to the brain. So I think the first thing we need to do next is try and understand whether there are specific polyunsaturated fatty acids that are providing most of the benefit. So at the moment we know that a general increase in a few of these different polyunsaturated fatty acids was beneficial. So we really want to understand if there's a specific one that is particularly beneficial. So that'll be the first thing we need to do. And then the second thing we need to do is work out how to get more into the brain. So only a limited amount comes in through the diet. So there may be ways of thinking about the best formulation to get the most into the brain, or we really have to put our thinking caps on and start thinking about, are there different, cleverer ways that we could get more delivered to the brain? And that's really something that's very active that we're thinking about right now. Once we've worked out which are the most important polyunsaturated fatty acids that mediate this effect, then again, of course, we will test them in our different model systems. But the ultimate test, the only way you'll know for sure whether these are going to be beneficial, is to move on to human clinical trials. And there is actually a great infrastructure for clinical trials for motor neuron disease in the UK. And so we would hope to access that network and take this all the way through to clinical trials once we've done more research. So it's a difficult question how long it will take to translate all the way through to humans, but it's going to be several years, but I would say less than 10.